Hey everyone, so today I got something in the mail that I've been wanting for quite a while. Got the Retrode 2. So what this is you can hook it up to your computer and you can read out your SNES and Sega Genesis cartridges, and you can also back up the game saves on, which is the main reason I bought it. So right here you got some instructions, and you got the actual unit itself. And this thing seems pretty nice, seems pretty well made. Lid feels a little bit flimsy, it'd be nice if you could take that off. But it probably would have cost too much to retool it. And taking a look here, it looks like it's probably not going to work with SA1 or SDD1 games because it's missing the pins on the sides here. And for the SA1 chip on the SNES and the SDD1, I think that's the one it's called. It's the one that's used by Star Ocean Street Fighter Alpha 2. It actually gets the clock signal from one of these pins, so looks like it's probably not going to read that. So you got the SNES side here, and you got the Sega Genesis side here. And not sure how well it's going to come out, but there's a little switch right in there to set between 3.3 and 5 volts. Because they actually make plugins for this so you can read out N64 and also Game Boy Advance cartridges. And those ones, you're going to need to use 3.3 volt. Everything else, you're going to use 5 volts. So regular Game Boy, Sega Genesis, SNES all operate off 5 volt. And I don't have many Sega Genesis games, but I do have a whole bunch of SNES games which we're going to try and dump out and see how it works with different cartridge chips and different RAM sizes. So first off, I got these three games right here. These are just standard games, no extra chips in them. Got Donkey Kong Country, it's got 16K SRAM. Legend of Zelda got 64K. And SimAnt, which has got 256K SRAM. So I just want to put that in there, see if it recognizes all the different RAM sizes correctly, and see if I can read them out. Then I also got Super Mario Kart, because I use the DSP-1 chip. It's also got 16K SRAM. I'm going to see if I can read that. Got Mega Man X2, which uses the CX4 chip. Then I also got Super Mario RPG, which again I'm probably not going to be able to read, but I'll put it in there, see what happens to that. Then also got a few Reproduction cartridges I'm going to try and read out. So I got some EX High ROM games. Got Tales of Fantasia and Dragon Quest III. Now Tales of Fantasia, you can just rewire the MAD 1 chip and then play the game that way. All other games like Dragon Quest III or Chrono Trigger or Crimson Echo, you need to add a 139 decoder chip to switch between the ROMs. So I'm going to take a look and see if I can read out those two. And this one, I'm probably not going to be able to read. This is the Star Ocean that uses the uncompressed ROM. Now, I'm thinking that the Retrode is probably not going to have support for this particular memory mapper, but we'll throw it in there and see what happens. Then I also got Star Fox and Star Fox 2, which uses the Super FX chip. So Star Fox 2, this one does have a battery, so I should be able to pull my high scores off of there. And all Super FX games, they do have RAM on them, but games like Star Fox and a few other ones, it just uses work RAM, doesn't actually save any progress. So, that being said, let's go ahead and head over to the computer, and we'll go ahead and give this thing a try. Okay, so now here we are at the computer. I'm going to go ahead and plug the Retrode in, and it's going to come up as a flash drive. There it is. Now right now I don't have any cartridges plugged in here, so all that's inside of here is the config file. So let's go ahead and get started, see how all these games work out. So first I'm going to try is Donkey Kong Country. Put that in there and then it should reload automatically. There we go, and I think I'll make a new folder just for the dumps. And it's going to be 2 kilobytes SRAM, so it looks like it is properly detecting how much RAM's on there. So I'm going to go ahead and drag those over, and it does take a little while because it has to translate between the serial and the parallel, and just do all the different conversion to actually get the ROM data from the ROM on the cartridge to the computer. Okay, there's Donkey Kong Country. Let's go ahead and move on to Legend of Zelda. See if it reloads or if I'm going to have to hit the reset button on the Retrode. Doesn't look like it's doing anything, so I'm going to hit reset. There's disconnect. And reconnect it. And coming up is Legend of Zelda. So it looks like now it's seeing this 64K SRAM. Drag those over. Shouldn't take nearly as long since this game's only a quarter the size of Donkey Kong Country. There we go. And now we got SimAnt. Reset. I think SimAnt's only 1 meg also. Which would be 8 megabit. And 32K SRAM, so it looks like it is properly detecting the different sizes for the SNES. Okay, and now I'm going to try reading out some of the EX High ROM games. So first up, I'm going to do Dragon Quest III. This is the one that uses the 139 decoder to switch between the two ROMs. And it's coming up as 8 megabytes. Not sure if I used two 4 megabyte chips or if I used a 4 and a 6. But hey, we'll copy it over and see if it loads up. It does feel a little bit flimsy when I press down on the unit to hold it still while I take the cartridges out. Other than that, I like the build quality of it. Next up, going to be Tales of Fantasia. This one's built by just rewiring the MAD 1 chip on the board. Hit the reset. Oh, and that's neat. It has the DJAP there. So I'm thinking that it's probably reading the actual internal title of the ROM on the board. It's probably using that header information to determine how much SRAM is on the board also. So I'm actually a little bit curious. I'm probably going to grab a copy of either Mega Man and Bass or Clock Tower. That's the one I was trying to think of. Because those ones, they actually only use 16K, but I build them on 64K boards. So I think once I'm done dumping these, I'll grab those and see if it comes up as 16 or 64 kilobits. And now I'm going to do Mario Kart. I'm not sure what these numbers and letters are at the end here. I wonder if that's maybe some kind of checksum. Now I'm going to try Mega Man X2. Now the thing with the Super FX and the CX4 chips is it does have the extra contacts on the PCBs, but they're actually not used for anything. If you take a look at it, there is, I think, 1 or 2 traces, but they actually don't go anywhere on the board. And this is interesting. I'm pretty sure Mega Man X2 is only 1.5 meg, but it's coming up as 2 here. Well, we'll copy that over and see if it has a proper checksum when we load in the SNES 9X later. Now, this board does have 2 ROMs on it, so I might just be seeing each ROM as 1 megabyte. And next we're going to do Star Fox 1. And like I said, Star Fox doesn't save, but the Super FX chip does use the RAM as work RAM. Basically just the same way your computer uses RAM. So I'm going to copy that over, and I just want to take a look at the SRAM and see if it's all zeros or all Fs. And then we're going to try Star Fox 2. That's interesting. It sees Star Fox 2, it sees the ROM, but it looks like it doesn't see the SRAM. It's a little bit interesting. So take that out, reseat it. And Star Fox 2 was never properly finished, so it might just be that maybe the header information just doesn't have it noted as there's any SRAM on there. Okay, now we're going to try Mario RPG, which again, I'm like 99% sure this isn't going to work because it's not going to get a clock signal, but we'll see what happens anyway. Yeah, I think there's like a generic error that comes up when it doesn't recognize the cartridge. But I'm just going to go ahead, unplug it, plug it back in, and see what happens. I did test all these games on my SNES and they did load up, and Mario RPG loaded up first try, so I know the contacts are clean. And this is new contact on the Retrode, so in theory that should be clean also. Yeah, it looks like he's just not going to read the SA1 games. So that means he's not going to read the original Star Ocean cartridges or Street Fighter Alpha 2. I think that's the one. And now we're going to try the Star Ocean with the uncompressed ROM. See what happens there. And this is a little bit interesting. It's coming up as 8 megabytes for the ROM itself, but it is properly seeing the amount of SRAM here. Now the thing about the Star Ocean, the uncompressed ROM, is it's actually 12 megabytes. So I'm going to copy over both the files anyway, and just take a look at them with a hex editor. Again, they probably just never bothered to program a mapper, so it's probably just seen as a generic EX High ROM game, rather than the full 12 megabyte uncompressed Star Ocean. Okay, so now we're done with all those. And I'm going to copy these ROMs over to my SNES 9X folder. I'm going to shut off the sound on SNES 9X, hopefully that'll help me avoid a copyright notice. And it looks like it did copy the save over properly. And again, this is why this is the reason why I bought the Retrode, because I want to be able to copy the save, swap out a battery, and then write the save back to the cartridge. And let's see what happens with Dragon Quest. Okay, it looks like you didn't read Dragon Quest properly. Guess that's just crashing. Well, we'll come back to that one a little bit later. Looks like you didn't read Mega Man X2 properly either. Okay, Samantha check something's fine. And it looks like the save is there. Star Fox. Okay, looks like that plays fine. The SNES 9X does detect that it's got 512K RAM in there. Not sure why the Retrode didn't detect it. And Star Ocean, that's not going to load up anyway because no emulator supports the uncompressed ROM. And it looks like I got 150cc unlocked, so it looks like it read the save file fine. And it looks like my Zelda save got copied over. Let's see. So it looks like the Retrode will not read extended high ROM games properly. Now I should have an original Tales of Fantasia mask ROM somewhere around here, so I'm going to go ahead and dig those out and see if I can use those to get a working dump of Tales of Fantasia. And I'm back. So, next thing I'm going to try reading out my Mega Man X3, so that's CX4 also. So we can kind of figure out if it's an issue with the file size, or just doesn't like CX4 ROMs. Apparently I put Mega Man X2 back in there. Now, I'm not terribly concerned if it's not going to copy the CX4 games, because these ones don't have any SRAM on them anyway. And the ROMs have been dumped for years, so I really don't see the point in dumping your own, since you can just download new ones from online. And now we're going to do X3. Mega Man X3 actually is 2 megabytes, so now it's seeing the proper size. And it looks like my Tales of Fantasia is not going to fit in here, because I have it on some sockets. Some ZIF sockets, because I was using it as a test board for EX High ROM games. So I'm probably going to have to take this out of the shell. Okay, I took the top shell off the Retrode, so now I can fit the Tales of Fantasia board with the ZIF sockets in. And it looks like X2 still ain't working. Let's try X3. Okay, it looks like X3 works, so it seems like it's probably an issue with the file size, Mega Man X being 1.5 megs instead of actually 2. It would just be hard-coded to read out 2 megabytes worth of data from the CX4 games. And let's take a look at Tales of Fantasia. Okay, so it looks like the Retrode just is not capable of reading out the extended high ROM games. And next thing I want to do, I'm going to take a look at the save data on the board that didn't have any battery. So it looks like a blank SRAM filled all Fs. It's interesting that Star Fox has all this repeating data in there. And it looks like it didn't read out the SRAM data properly from Star Ocean. That's too bad. Now Tales of Fantasia, let's see what that looks like. I know that board does have battery in there. Let's see, Dragon Quest? Looks like I might have read the Dragon Quest properly. Alright, so it looks like it did read out the SRAM properly from Dragon Quest 3. That's pretty neat. So all in all, it seems like it functions pretty much as I would expect it with SNES games. You know, there's a few that it doesn't want to read properly. You know, they're the few odd ones. You know, a little bit disappointed that I can't read out the extended high ROM games. So maybe I'll see if I can get in touch with the guy that writes the firmware and see if I can let him know about it. Maybe he can put out an update and get this fixed up. Okay, so I did find a few more games I want to test out. So I grabbed Clock Tower, Mega Man and Bass, Mega Man X1, and I found another copy of Mega Man X2 that I'm going to try reading out as well. So my copy of Mega Man X1, that's actually the Majesco re-release. It only has one ROM chip on the board. So I'm not sure if that's going to work the same as the original one or not on the Retrode. But unfortunately I don't have the original double ROM board to test out. So let's go ahead and start off with Clock Tower. So this is a 16K SRAM game that I built on a 64K board. And I want to see if it comes up and it sees 16K or 64K on there. So it looks like it's seeing the 16K. So it's definitely getting the SRAM size from the ROM header. Now I'm curious, since it was a 64K SRAM on the board, it's only reading out 16K, but it's going to get all the game save data or not. Now, Mega Man base. Now, Mega Man X1. Now, that doesn't seem right. Alright, so I'm going to have to try cleaning the contacts on that one. Meantime, let's try out X2, the other cartridge I have. Okay, and I hit Mega Man X1 with some alcohol. Let's see if it'll read it now. There we go. Okay, looks like at least the Majesco re-release of Mega Man X1 works. Yeah, X2 just will not dump properly. Now let's take a look at Clock Tower and Mega Man Base. Alright, so Clock Tower worked out. Alright, there we go. Yeah, so all in all, not too bad. So I think when I get my next paycheck, I'm going to pick up the N64 and the Game Boy adapters. That way I can back up my Pokemon saves. And then once I get those in, I'll probably be making a video about those two also.